What is up with the Magma Boss? Why is everybody able to deal so much damage to it? I'm sure you've seen a ton of screenshots of people doing integer limit damage to the Magma Boss. And not just the Magma Boss, but other mini bosses for that matter. And this only really became realistic. I mean, some people were probably able to do integer limit damage anyway, but for most people, they weren't really able to obtain anywhere near that. Now, the most recent Skyblock update where we saw changes to pets and when people thought Primal Dragons were going to come out, is when we saw the change. But also being able to deal absurd damage to other mini-bosses indicates that it's not an issue with the Magma Boss, but it must be something else. Now, for a mob to take more damage, there's got to be one of a few things that's changed. First of all, it could simply be the defense of the mob. I guess if the defense of the mob is lower, then they're going to take more damage naturally. However, it's not just this mob, it's not just this boss that is taking more damage. And of course, everybody uses different setups to do the Magma Boss, but the one thing that's pretty much constant is the Terminator. First of all, to be sure, we look at the changelog for the Magma Boss, nothing has changed since April 2022, which I assume is probably when the new Magma Boss was introduced. And if we look at the changelog for the Terminator, nothing has changed since January, and, well, that's got nothing to do with what we've observed. Plus the timeline it just wouldn't add up anyway. Now, some people speculate that the Terminator is now just simply shooting faster, therefore dealing more damage. But if the shot cooldown has changed, then surely we'll be able to see that in the changelog, and not seeing that in the changelog seems a little bit strange. So what has happened? So I don't have a great setup, and I dealt 1.5 billion damage. Surely that's not right. The most I've dealt is just over 2 billion damage a couple of days ago. And people are easily able to deal over integer limit damage, and when I've actually done some testing with a few other people, they were able to get close to 5 billion damage, basically just measuring off one phase and then multiplying it. So how come everybody can now deal so much damage? It is a little bit confusing, because we're thinking it's something to do with the Terminator, but nothing's changed with the Terminator. Or nothing that we can see has changed with the Terminator. Prior to this change, I think I would have really struggled to deal 1 billion damage. I don't know, let's see how much damage we deal at the moment. See, 420k, it's nothing ridiculous, and it doesn't really indicate that the base damage has increased by a lot, which I didn't think has happened anyway. My bonus attack speed isn't even 100. The crazy thing is I'm not using arrow poison, I'm not doing anything crazy. The arrows that I'm using are just regular flint arrows. That is not my quiver. So yeah, what has happened? Before we go any further, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS. It gets yourself 5% off. You should subscribe to the channel. If you watch these videos and you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do so. You should join the Discord server. It's linked in the description of this video. We offer slayers and dungeon carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. Something that could be interesting to look at is maybe Cubism. I've not upgraded the Cubism on my bow, and it's only 5. But maybe something with Cubism's changed? It is quite a long shot. That most definitely also doesn't seem to be the case. There was a change in February, but that was to do with collection, so yeah. You just shouldn't be able to do this much damage with this setup. There's got to be something else going on. And I decided to ask my Discord server to see if anybody had any ideas. I basically just asked, does anybody know why the Magma Boss now takes so much more damage? The first response we got was Cubism, and maybe way lower defense than other bosses. Now, the Magma Boss hasn't changed, but the defenses are constant. I initially thought that maybe something to do with the Magma Boss's defense has changed, but it hadn't when we took a look. It could be Cubism, although Cubism hasn't changed. So yeah. The next response was just ghost damage, and I guess that could be the case. Well, we would never really know. Of course, ghost damage isn't really supposed to take place, so it might just be a bug. Term equals Gug. I mean, yeah, but term has always been good and term hasn't changed. It's Hypixel, probably just bugged. Probably right. Ask Juju, he's a Magma Boss gamer. And yeah, Opinion does do a lot of Magma Boss, and he was wondering the exact same thing. I mean, to be honest, he was the first person that brought it up, and then when I did Magma Boss, I realised I was able to do way more damage. And we don't really know. I already asked him. He thought it might have been something to do with the term shooting faster because that's what he'd heard from other people. That might be the case, but we don't really know. The shot cooldown hasn't reduced. It's an interesting one. Hits the soft caps at 1 million damage, so Hyperion won't be able to do more than 1.5 million damage. Meanwhile, Terminator does lower damage, so let's say 700k damage, which is below the soft cap, but you'll land 20 to 30 arrows per second, and another 40 to 80 frosty hits on top of that. Terminator is such your highest DPS weapon, and so on. And that is true, but nothing's changed with the Terminator. or from what we can see. And the Terminator has always been this good. So what has changed to make the Magma Boss take so much more damage from a Term? Term plus Cubism plus Terror plus high MP equals big damage, and that's true, but that's always been true. And it isn't just me and a couple of other people, it's everyone that's dealing more damage, of course. Well, yeah, I also recently started killing Magma Boss way faster than I did before. It now takes more ticks, and that's what I've noticed too. Maybe it's similar to a bug to how the Dante items were 4 times stronger. Maybe, but what items would that be, or what items would be 4 times stronger? The Term? I don't know. I just don't know. We have a breakdown of some pretty good stats here. Basically indicating that you can do... Where is the damage figure? 48 million DPS with Terminator. Not even using Salvation ability. And while that could be true, and probably is true, nothing's changed. So I'm sure you'll be able to do that before. And realistically, the only thing we can go back to is probably ghost damage and potentially Cubism. Now, we need to take a look at Cubism because a lot of people have said it could be Cubism, and that is true. Nothing's changed, but it could be bugged, so we need to do a bit of investigation. If mobs have immunity frames, explosive arrows with ferocity generate absurd amount of ghost damage. I even have a record of me abusing it to do 2 billion damage to Duke. And I've known about this for a while now, how you're able to do a ridiculous amount of damage with a lot of ferocity using a Terminator if you get a mob in the right angle, but yeah, not even using explosive arrows, so it's got nothing to do with that, and I don't have a lot of ferocity. So maybe we have to take a look at Cubism, because if it's ghost damage, we'll never know. And we'll never know what's changed it, we just won't know. But here's the issue. If we take Cubism off this bow, sure, we're going to do less damage to the Magma Boss. But how much less damage are we going to do? Well, of course we can measure that, but we don't know how much this was doing prior, maybe with and without Cubism. So it's very hard to compare, but we can definitely have a bit of a play around and see what happens. So yeah, our damage was somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7 without really trying too much, but constantly shooting the boss when I could. How about if we go Hex? We'll remove Cubism, and then maybe we'll try the different. Then maybe we'll try to see maybe the difference between Cubism 5 and Cubism 6. Because if this really is the issue, like the thing we should be looking at, it is 80 mil though. Oh god. Anyway, we'll start with removing it and see what this does. To be honest, I can tell straight away without Cubism, we're dealing a lot less damage. Like, it is just not ticking as quick, like nowhere near as quick. But we'll see the outcome. We dealt 1.7 billion. We don't have Cubism on. Okay, I'm going to try that again because quite believe what I'm seeing. The damage has literally not changed. Okay. Okay, yep, that's definitely accurate. We got pretty much the same again, just over 1.7 billion. We don't have Cubism on here. And with Cubism, I think we did about 1.75, maybe. Like, it was virtually the same. And to be honest, I could probably just put that down to maybe missing a few arrows on, this one and the last one. So the damage is the same with and without Cubism. If it's not, it's very, very, very insanely minimal. Just maybe 1%, maybe even less. Now, previously, I only had Cubism 5 on my Terminator, but for instance, Cubism 6 increases damage dealt to slimes, creepers, and magma cubes by 80%. Whereas Cubism 5 does the exact same thing, but by 60% rather than 80%. Now, only logically thinking, if we do 1.7 billion damage with the Terminator without Cubism, you would think, well, we would deal an extra 60% damage if we actually put Cubism 5 on there. But we know that is not the case, which is really strange because it's almost as if Cubism doesn't do anything. However, that means that the rest of that damage must be coming from something else, or might just be straight up ghost damage like people are saying, which is probably the most likely thing, considering an enchantment like Cubism isn't even affecting the outcome of the damage. I think just for testing's sake, I'm going to do one more boss this time with Cubism to see what we get. Okay, so with Cubism we deal less damage. We dealt 1.582. And we got all of our Ragaxes right that time as well. Right, I need to test it again. This is just really, really confusing. Now the real thing is, it really feels like I'm doing more damage to it. The tick on the side of the bar is quicker with Cubism. However, we'll have to see again to see if it is consistent. But it seems like we actually deal less damage overall with an enchantment that's supposed to make us deal 60% more damage towards this mob, which is just, yeah, I don't know. Okay, now that time we dealt 1.8 billion. So, here are the facts. Without Cubism, we can deal 1.7. With Cubism, we've dealt 1.7 more consistently. Now we've dealt 1.8. But that could once again just be down to getting timings better with the Ragax and not missing as many shots. If I'm being completely honest, I don't really think Cubism is making a difference at all. Now, on the fandom wiki, there's a little bit here about ghost damage. Ghost damage is a mechanic sprouting from Frosty. Ghost damage occurs when Frosty procs on bosses with a leaderboard, such as Ensign Protector, Arachne Dragons, Magma Cube boss, Headless Horseman, and so on. All damage done as Frosty will not be counted towards defeating the boss, but will be counted as damage on the leaderboard, which I guess is the damage that it shows you at the end. Now, this is okay, and it could be ghost damage. However, the actual ticks on the side are going up noticeably faster than before. Also, my Frosty when using this setup is 4. So, yeah. In conclusion, something's going on. I just don't know what it is, and I can't get to the bottom of it. The most logical explanation is ghost damage, but the definition of ghost damage doesn't line up with this, because ghost damage isn't actually supposed to affect the damage on the actual boss, whereas this is because we're killing the boss quicker. Of course, we're getting a higher damaging stat, which would align with ghost damage, but it isn't supposed to actually kill the boss quicker. It's damage that isn't really damage. It's figures rather than actual damage to the mob. Something funky is going on with Cubism as well. It seems like it doesn't really have much effect, especially against the Magma boss. And by definition, the Magma boss is just a big Magma cube. I wonder if we just test on a regular Magma cube, see what our damage is. Yeah, let's just see. 547, 548, that seems pretty consistent. Okay, let's remove Cubism. Now test. Okay, now we deal 513k damage. So we are dealing less damage to regular Magma cubes, although we don't really see that same change to the Magma boss. But the Magma boss is just a big Magma cube, unless the Magma boss isn't scaled off a Magma cube. And I don't know, I'm really overthinking this. However, we're not dealing as much damage to Magma cubes as we are with Cubism. However, it's not a 60% difference, which is interesting. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you know what is causing the massive disparity in damage to the Magma boss before and after the most recent update. This is a bit of a difficult one. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you have, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.